Good evening, my friends. It's Indiana Homes for story time, and we continue tonight with Mystery in White. Chapter 20, The New Arrivals. During that torturous journey, Mr. Strange had shown the fewest outward signs of distress, but when he had been helped up the slope of snow beneath the back window, and then pushed and pulled into the passage, he peacefully collapsed. Mr. Maltby, Mr. Hopkins, and Lydia had been on the spot to assist his ingress. And when his surprising appearance was followed by the appearance of Nora and David, looking not far off collapse themselves, there had ensued a moment of complete bewilderment. It was during this moment that Mr. Strange closed his eyes and slid quietly to the floor. "Another patient? And this time our host," announced David. "What? What's that?" exclaimed Mr. Maltby. "Mr. Strange and his daughter just arrived." David added the last two words significantly for Mr. Maltby's benefit, and their meaning was not lost upon him. "We must get them to their rooms. Explanations later." Then a rather surprising thing happened. As David moved to the recumbent form, Mr. Hopkins sprang forward and pushed him back. "No, no! You've done enough," he cried. "Let me." A genuine spirit of service had at last entered into him, and he bent down and began struggling more zealously than skillfully with Mr. Strange's legs. "Thanks, but I think it needs two of us," said David, "and perhaps you'll look after Miss Strange, Lydia. She's been through a pretty stiff time." But Lydia did not need the hint. She'd already had her arm round Nora and was beginning the good offices her brother had predicted. Christmas crept in almost unnoticed. Only Jessie Noyes, ruminating on the couch by the hall fire, was conscious of the chiming of midnight. All the others, with the exception of Thompson, who was still asleep in the drawing-room, were engaged in various occupations upstairs, too absorbed to attend to the advent of the 25th. "I said a Merry Christmas," ran Jessie's diary, "but there was no one to hear me, unless you count that poor portrait on the wall. He seemed to hear me. In fact, he seemed to hear everything, but he didn't wish me a Merry Christmas back. Thank God. But, after all I'd been through, it wouldn't have been surprising, at least not to me, if he had. Though I expect, if he really had, I'd have gone off pop." Mr. Hopkins was the first to descend the hall, which, by virtue of its comfort and spaciousness, its lavish furnishing, and its large brick fireplace, had become the common center. Jessie glanced at him rather apprehensively, for this was the first time they had been alone together since he had entered her bedroom, but he seemed in a chastened spirit. Recent events and emotions had had their effect upon him and given him the team attitude. "Well, that's done," he exclaimed, a little over loudly. Ghosts don't like loud voices, which was why he did. "We've got Mr. Strange upstairs. Bit of a wait between you and me, and now he's sound between the sheets." "Which sheets?" asked Jessie. Well, as a matter of fact, he's in the room you had. Personally, I wasn't quite sure whether that was the best place to put him, but, well, there you are." "I hope he'll be all right." "I expect so. Maltby said that it was only because, that is—" His voice trailed off. About to sit on the end of the couch, he changed his mind and sat down into the armchair. "Because of what?" she inquired. "Well, I don't suppose you want to speak about it." "You mean what I felt?" "Yes. Must have been damned nasty." "It was. Not only the bed, you know, but that chair in the dining room, too. Extraordinary case. Yes, and I've come across some extraordinary cases in my time. Not sure that this doesn't beat the lot. What do you make of it all?" Mr. Hopkins evidently did not want to speak about it. The fact was, he badly needed conversation with somebody who did not develop his inferiority complex, and although he had made a bad start with Jessie, He still felt that she was the only person in the house who could speak his language. "I don't know what to make of it," answered Jesse. "Of course, the hammer just capped it," he exclaimed. "I've come across a similar case, though. South America. They touched an old woman's forehead with a piece of wood. It was a bit of an airplane that had crashed. Did I tell you? No, you weren't here. And she... What's the matter?" "I don't know what you're talking about," said Jesse, staring at him. What hammer?" Mr. Hopkins grew suddenly pink. "Oh, well, never mind," he murmured. "Forget that. No, please tell me." "All right, I suppose I must now. And after all, why not? Only I wouldn't let 'em know I'm telling you, mind you. I think you ought to know, but they'll say I've put my foot into it. All this damn secretiveness, well, let it go. It was when you were in that trance." "Trance? I mean sleep. When you were asleep. You talked in your sleep. Yes, that's it. And you said the hammer had hit you. Well, we knew it had hit someone, so that didn't really get us much further. Of course, I know what I think. However, what's the good of talking when everybody else knows better?" He shrugged his shoulders. "Queer business, but don't worry. If there's any trouble, I'll look after you." He glanced at her to see how she took the suggestion. Her grave expression puzzled and worried him. "Do you know what I'm thinking?" she said. "I'm thinking it's best when I look after myself." "Well, that's all right, if you can." "I expect I can. I always have." Suddenly she added, "Anyhow, Mr. Hopkins, I don't want you to." "I see you've not forgiven me," he frowned. Something in his expression made her feel a beast, as she had admitted later in her diary. "If there's anything to forgive, of course I forgive you," she exclaimed. "Don't think anything more about it." He brightened. A few moments later, Mr. Maltby and David joined them. That, Mr. Hopkins thought, was a pity, but he dared not show his displeasure lest he should again fall from grace. His one hope of maintaining friendly relations with Jessie was to continue the team spirit and prove that she had misjudged him. "Well, how's things?" he asked. "All okay?" "That is rather overestimating the beauty of the situation," replied Mr. Maltby. "Ah," said Mr. Hopkins. He hoped Jessie was noting how well he was taking the old man's acidity. "But no fresh trouble, eh?" "Considerable, in my estimation. But Mr. Strange is asleep. That, at least, is satisfactory. And Miss Strange will be coming down shortly." "Coming down? What for?" exclaimed Mr. Hopkins. "I should have thought she'd have gone straight to bed." "No one can think of a bed tonight unless their condition forces it." "She's coming down to tell her story," explained David. "She's got one." "I see," murmured Mr. Hopkins. "She didn't tell it to you, then?" "Only scraps," replied David. "And so far I only have had odd scraps of your story," said Mr. Maltby. "This would be a good moment to tell it in detail." "Yes, sir, I agree. But here or in the dining room?" Jessie caught the glance he gave her in her direction. "Here," she decided for them. "When will you learn that there's nothing so frightening as to be left in the dark? And anyhow, I know more than you think. I do already. I know about the hammer." Mr. Hopkins began to look flustered, but she quickly came to his rescue. "I made Mr. Hopkins tell me. I had to drag it out of him." "Damn good little sport," thought Mr. Hopkins, as he let the white lie pass. "I'll do something for her one of these days. See if I don't." "In that case, let it be here," said Mr. Maltby. "And please don't omit any point, however trivial it may seem. A thread of cotton has hung a man before now. When you left us," he glanced at the clock. "Oh, a Merry Christmas, everybody. When you left us an hour and 43 minutes ago, and went out through the back window." David told his story. Obedient to Mr. Maltby's request, he described his journey as minutely as he could, giving his reasons as well as his facts. He dwelt particularly on the various footprints he had seen and followed, giving their character, condition, and direction. The one part of the story he hurried over was that relating to the mound of snow. He was relieved that Mr. Maltby did not press on this point. When he had finished, the old man took 1 or 2 turns up and down the carpet and then asked, "Will you please repeat all you have told me about the footprints? I want to get them quite fixed in my mind." David did so. "Thank you. And your theory was that the fainter footprints were made by Smith, and that the fresher footprints, more distinct ones, were made by somebody else? Probably one of the 2 people I saw hurrying away before I arrived here?" "Yes, and who we now know were not Mr. and Miss Strange." "Exactly. And Smith went by the Strange's stranded car?" "That seems fairly certain." "Fairly certain is not quite certain, but for the moment we will accept that." "And the other person, who was not Mr. or Miss Strange, did not go by the stranded car, but took the left road where the lane forked?" "You've got it exactly." "Yes, exactly. I've got it exactly that this person did not know a car was stranded, or that Mr. and Miss Strange were in it, or that Mr. and Miss Strange are here at all. That may not be the least important. On the other hand, it may be very important indeed." He paused and went on. "What I have not got so exactly is why this person, who was neither Mr. nor Miss Strange, but who is alleged to have been one of the 2 people I saw hurrying away, and who might still remember, have been the servant Charles Shaw, and who might not, should I have remained in this neighborhood for over 6 hours, after having, we assume, dropped a certain hammer. He or she," interposed Mr. Maltby, "avoid the fixed idea. He or she may have been looking for the hammer, or for something else. I thought of that too, and may still be looking for it. He or she has gone too far away now. You went some distance yourself, but you came back. If this unknown person stayed around here for 6 hours because through wanting something very badly, and if he or she has not got something, there may be more footprints in the snow before long in this direction. I do not quarrel with anything you did on your journey, Mr. Carrington, but I wish it could have happened that you had traced those fresh steps, the ones around the house, backwards a little farther. I should like to know where they started from." "Shall I have a shot to find out now?" asked David. "Goodness, haven't you done enough?" murmured Jessie. "What about me?" suggested Mr. Hopkins, praying the offer would be received. "Shall I go?" Mr. Maltby shook his head and turned towards the staircase. "I think we will leave that for the moment," he said. "Here comes Miss Strange, and the next thing we need is her story." There was a general movement as Nora Strange came down the stairs, and David jumped quickly to his feet. Without her heavy coat, she was wearing a white silk blouse and a light brown skirt. Some ethereal quality in her seemed to be accentuated, but it was not the ghostly quality that lay around Valley House like a dank mist. It was something delicately fragile that gave her a human luminosity. "Feeling better?" asked David. "Much," she answered, "thanks to your sister." "Lydia knows all the right things to do," he said. "Where is she?" "She's sitting in Father's room. She's going to let us know when he needs anything." "Good. Well, come and sit down and get warm." "Yes, sit here," added Jessie, moving her legs to make room for her on the couch. "This is the best place. I mustn't hog it." "Thank you. And what about food?" asked David, as Nora settled herself against the corner. "Can we get you something?" "No, I'm not hungry. We had a big meal at the inn before we left." The 2 other men were regarding her silently. Her type of beauty, as Lydia's, was beyond the reach of such sensualists as Mr. Hopkins, and although he would have awarded both Lydia and Nora higher marks than Jessie in a beauty contest, he infinitely preferred the chorus girl's prettiness because his experience had proved it more accessible. Mr. Maltby's interest in Nora Strange, on the other hand, was purely academic. Now he suddenly addressed her and said, "In that case, Miss Strange, may we talk?" "Yes, of course," she answered. That's what I've come down for. Then let us first get the obvious courtesies out of the way, because we have more important things to talk about, replied Mr. Maltby. Are you forgiving us for our intrusion? Oh, yes. As a matter of fact, it may turn out, from your point of view, a fortunate intrusion. If we had not been here, Mr. Carrington would not have found you in the lane, and even if you had succeeded without him in bringing your father here, I never should. That we do not know. But you should or would have been in a very different and difficult position if you had arrived here alone and had to find out certain things which now I shall be able to tell you. You see, Miss Strange, we have a story too to exchange for yours, and I have no doubt that many of the details will dovetail. If you and your father need any help, we are here to give it to you. You've helped us already. We shall go on doing so. Please bear that in mind when you are telling us whatever you care to tell us of the circumstances of this visit. This is naturally not idle curiosity. Mr. Carrington tells me that this is your very first visit to this house. Yes, but it belongs to your father. Yes, it was left to him by his father. She glanced at the picture over the mantelpiece. It had to be. It's what is called entailed property. I see. And that is a picture of your grandfather? I think it must be. You never saw him yourself then? No, I was only a baby when he died, but... One moment. Did he die here in this house? Yes. That would be about 20 years ago? How did you know? You said you were a baby at the time, smiled Mr. Maltby. I put your age at about 20, and then did a very simple sum. Forgive the interruption. I shall probably interrupt you a lot. Has anybody told you my name? It is Edward Maltby. If you're interested in psychic matters and read occult literature, you may have heard of it, but otherwise you will not. You were telling me how you recognize that picture of your grandfather, whom you never saw. I recognize it because it looks something like my father, she answered, rather breathlessly. David gathered that, in her tired condition, she was finding it rather difficult to keep pace with Mr. Maltby's quick mind. Mr. Maltby never seemed to tire, and then I once saw an old photograph of him, my grandfather. Only one? Yes. Your father does not keep an extensive family album, then. What's he asking that for? Wondered David. But he knew that every question put by the old man had a reason. No, we haven't one. I don't think my father... She paused suddenly. No, that doesn't come into the story. You are utterly wrong, retorted Mr. Maltby. It does come into the story. Everything you can tell me about your grandfather comes into the story. And if you only tell me half the story, I shall not be able to help you. Your grandfather, his death, your father, his reason for coming here, your servant or caretaker, Charles Shaw, any other people or near relatives who have lived in this house or had anything to do with it. I want the whole lot. My mouth is wide open, Miss Strange, for anything you can tell me. You find me in the greediest possible mood. May I make an interruption? Interposed David. That, Miss Strange, is how Mr. Carrington generally begins his interruptions, remarked Mr. Maltby. But he interrupts whether he receives permission or not. Then I won't make this any exception, answered David. Although you may think this interruption a rude one, Mr. Maltby, that does not worry me. I can be rude myself. Queen Anne's dead, murmured Mr. Hopkins, getting a quiet hit. David turned to Nora, who was looking a little helpless. What I want to say is this, Miss Strange. Mr. Maltby, yes, that man who is watching me at this moment to see how rude I am and how rude I am going to be, is a dry old fossil with a manner that sometimes reminds one of the dissecting room. But even when he is rudest, he has a heart of gold. That is the sugar on the pill, sir, and he gets there. So this is my advice. Don't be bullied in your own house. Her father's corrected the subject of the discourse, or be put off by his interruptions for which he never asks permission. Don't tell us a thing you don't want to, but tell us all you can." Nora smiled. She knew that she was trying, for her sake, to remove the atmosphere of the dissecting room, and she was grateful. "I haven't felt that anybody has been rude," she answered, "and I will tell you all I can. I'm not quite sure where to begin, though." "There is a gentleman up on the wall," replied Mr. Maltby, "who, I think, is asking you to begin with his death." "No, I must begin a little further before that, if I'm really going to tell you everything," she said. "My grandfather was living here with my father and my uncle. My father wasn't married then. I believe there were ruxations sometimes. My father and uncle didn't get on very well, and father told me he was quite glad to leave the place when the war broke out. He joined up in the service at once. That was 23 years ago." "Yes." "Did your uncle join up too?" "No, I think there was something the matter with him, but I'm not sure. Anyhow, he didn't. He stayed on here. My father says he said they only needed very young men, but my father was 2 years older than my Uncle Harvey, and he went." "How old was your father?" He's 57 now. He must have been 34. The age limit was raised well above that. Probably your Uncle Harvey did have something the matter with him, or found a way of getting excused. There were plenty of ways and plenty of people to look for them. Would you say your Uncle Harvey was that kind of man, or am I getting too personal?" he added, with a dry glance at David. "Not at all. I should think he was actually that kind of man. I needn't hide from you that father doesn't like him, and he doesn't like father. Could it be put more strongly? I dare say. In fact, not to mince matters, they hate each other. Yes, but from a distance. They haven't seen each other for years. After the war had been on for about 2 years, my father met my mother. She was an actress, and he was on leave, and on his next leave, it was at Christmas, he proposed to her and brought her here. There was a bad scene. I think my grandfather must have been rather